Peace, world. I'm back. So today, what I want to get into is survival skills, and learning how to become more self-reliant. With the way how things are going in the world and in society right now, we need to become more self-reliant and learn how to build up. If you don't know how, you need to learn how to build up survival skills and survival tactics and/or survival traits. So how do you do that? Is for one, you have to learn how to use your hands better. What that means is, learn how to build. So if you have wood, learn how to use the wood to build. Learn how to use metal, learn how to use copper, learn how to use brass. Learn how to use these things to build things for yourself and for your family. If you have tools, learn how to use your tools. It was a point in time in my life where I didn't think that a toolkit would be any sort of relevance to me, but I'm thankful I have a toolkit because I'm learning how to take time and I'm learning how to build things. I learned, you know, in my past life, when I was going through a lot, when I was incarcerated and I was going through certain things, I learned how to become a carpenter. Instead of, letting where I was at get the best of me, I took advantage of it. I learned how to read better. I learned how to write better. And outside of learning how to read and write better, I became a master of my own craft with learning how to become a carpenter, and I didn't believe at that time that I would need it as much as I do today moving forward, learning how to use my hands, learning how to use a hammer, learning how to use a drill, learning how to use a screwdriver, learning how to use a saw, just learning how to use tools to build things from scratch, and outside of learning how to build things or perfecting my craft or being a carpenter, what that do, what that did, or what that does, as well as free up my mind from worrying about, for example, being on the internet or always watching TV or always listening to the radio or always listening to music or just being caught up in unnecessary things. Because now when I got to work on building, things from scratch, with the wood or with the metal or with the iron or with the copper or with the brass or whatever I have, that's occupying my mind and occupying my time. So even if I don't have time for my children or I don't have time for my family, at least I'm doing something productive. So when I'm not, having time for my children, or having time for my family, or having time to do things that is productive, that is necessary, or that is positive, I'm still putting that energy into learning how to do other things. So if I'm forced now to build or to do something with my hands, I won't be in an awkward or I won't be in an orthodox place in my life where if I'm left in the wilderness or if I'm left in the woods and I have to learn how to use a tree or I have to learn how to use leaves or I have to learn how to use twigs or whatever that cause that the environment or the atmosphere I'm in, I won't feel awkward. I won't feel unorthodox of learning how to do these things. So if I have to build a shed or a cabin or a tent or whatever I have to do, I won't feel awkward or unorthodox doing that or learning how to do that. Why? Because I'm working on doing those things now because I never know. I may be thrust to be put into that situation. I don't know what God may set forth for me to have to do with my son or with my uncle or with my aunt or with my mom or with my dad or with a friend or with a coworker or with any walks of life. I never know. I may have to learn how to hunt. And now, since I don't have a problem with being in that environment or being in that atmosphere. Now, that's one step I already took care of. I learned how to be in the woods, or I learned how to be in the wilderness on my own, or I learned how to coexist in that environment. So now, maybe my next step is learning how to hunt. And now, once I learn how to hunt, I can be in that environment, I can be in that atmosphere, and that builds up what? Survival skills. That builds up what? Survival traits at the end of the day. So now, I can literally learn how to hunt. So now if I have to hunt to survive, it won't be a problem. I won't feel unorthodox or awkward to be able to do that. Or if I have to do it and I have to survive in that environment for 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, I can do it without now starving to death or without freezing to death or without, whatever comes with that, I just would be able to adjust to it without it being or for me, being awkward. So at the end of the day, that become important when you're working on survival skills, or you're working on survival traits, or you're just working on things that make seem out of the norm, and they become natural to you. That's why I say I like to do things naturally instead of normally, because naturally, if I work on these things, now when I'm thrusted or I have to be in that environment or that situation, I learn, or I can learn how to do these things. So I had a family member ask me, well, what will I do if I'm left in the wilderness on my own, or I'm left in the woods for 30 days? How will I survive? And you know what? Before I answered that family member, I said, you know what? I'm glad you proposed that to me. That's something that I got to start working on. That's something that I got to think about. Because even though I have tools, or even though, you know, I figured that, you know, I know what I'm doing when it comes to carpentry, or I know how to build certain things with wood, that's great. But now, if I'm placed in that environment, will I be able to adapt? Will I be able to adjust? And for me, that gave me something to think about. That gave me something to work on. So now, if I'm put in that environment, what could I do? If I'm in that atmosphere with my son, what could I do? So if I have to teach my son how to hunt, that's something that I need to work on, because that's important. He maybe have to learn how to hunt for the next 30 to 45 to 60 days to survive. Now I want to teach him how to hunt correctly. And the same thing with fishing, and so on and so forth. I need to learn how to do these things. So if I'm placed in that environment, if I'm placed in that atmosphere, I don't feel out of place. So if somebody want to teach me how to hunt or how to fish, I'm thankful for that. And that's something I need to learn. I need to learn that language. I need to learn that terminology. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I'm already accustomed to doing things that I've been accustomed to doing. So now I need to readjust and get accustomed to hunting, to fishing, to being in a different environment, to being in different places, in different environments throughout the planet Earth, because the Earth is a big place. So I need to not only learn how to adapt to other states, but I need to learn how to adapt to other countries, to Antarctica, to Asia, to Australia, to London, to Rome, to China, to Brazil. I need to learn how to do that, because if I'm in these places, I need to learn how to adapt to their terminology, to their walks of life, and not only be stuck on wherever I was at in America, whether that was New York, whether that was Chicago, whether that was Detroit, whether that was California, whether that was South Carolina, whether that was Virginia, whether that was Massachusetts, wherever it is, Wyoming, Montana, so on and so forth. I need to learn how to adapt to other walks of life, and I need to learn how to readjust to other walks of life. So if I'm thrusted into a situation and they like, well, you're going to be in Antarctica for the next 45 days. I need to learn how to adapt to that environment. I need to learn how to adapt to whatever they got going on, wherever that's at. So now if I have to fish, I don't feel awkward when I have to fish. I don't feel awkward if I have to hunt. I don't feel awkward if I have to survive in a safari or in a jungle or whatever walks of life. I just be ready for that. Mentally, spiritually, and psychologically, because I'm understanding that God or the Most High or the Elohim or Yahweh will not put me in a situation that I'm unable to handle. So if I get psychologically and mentally and spiritually prepared for it, when I'm put in it, it won't be nothing for me to adjust to it. So that was something that I wanted to bring to the platform today, you guys. Learning how to survive, being in an environment where I have to learn survival skills and/or traits and/or tactics, because I never know that I may be thrusted into that in any walks of life, and I'm learning that the Most High will not put me in a situation that I'm unable to handle, but the Most High may put me in a situation to see how I readjust, adapt, or handle it. So this has been another episode of Final Say, and if you feeling what I'm doing, if you understand it, drop a like, drop a comment, share, subscribe. Peace, world.